The shock revelation. Billionaire sees housekeeper's daughter, and she whispers, "Daddy, I love you." Crisis warning. Before you dive into this high-stakes drama, a brief message. If this story of honesty and redemption touches you, subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell now. Like this video if you believe in second chances. Chapter 1. The Echo in the Mansion. Hook, Alexander Sterling, strode across the main hall of his Miami mansion, his footsteps echoing on the Italian marble floor as he adjusted the Swiss watch on his wrist. It was the night of an international investors' dinner, and everything needed to be perfect. Crystal chandeliers bathed the room in golden light, reflecting off the wine glasses already set on the imperial table. In the distance, near the kitchen door, he noticed a small, delicate figure observing everything with wide eyes. The girl must have been about 8 years old, with wavy brown hair falling over her shoulders, her simple dress contrasting with the surrounding luxury. She nervously held the hand of Isabel Rodriguez, the housekeeper. But it was when their eyes met that time froze. The same green eyes, the same dimple on the cheek, the same sharp features that Alexander saw in the mirror every morning. Before anyone could say anything, the girl let go of her mother's hand and ran. "Daddy!" Her voice echoed across the hall. "I love you!" The silence was deafening. Glasses paused midair. Conversations died. All eyes turned to that impossible scene. But no one imagined that this innocent hug was about to reveal a secret buried for 9 years. A secret that would destroy everything. But before you find out what happened to this family, subscribe to the channel and activate notifications now. Let's continue. Chapter 2. The Silent Void. Alexander Sterling did not believe in coincidences. At 45, he had built a real estate empire, brick by brick, decision by decision, always guided by the cold logic of numbers and contracts. His routine was as predictable as a Swiss timepiece. His marriage to Victoria had become a social formality. They shared the same house but lived in parallel universes. She with her charity galas, he with his financial reports. What few knew was that Alexander carried a wound that never completely healed. He always wanted to be a father, but every negative test result was a silent dagger in a dream he had learned to bury. He convinced himself that his destiny was to build companies, not families. Isabel Rodriguez was almost invisible in that universe of luxury. For 3 years, she had worked as a housekeeper in the mansion, always discreet, always efficient. But no one knew much about Isabel. She had a university degree in business administration tucked away in a drawer, dreams filed away, and an 8-year-old daughter, Lily, who was her sole reason for waking up every day. Lily was everything to her. The girl studied in a public school, loved to draw, and every night asked the same thing. "Mom, when will I meet my dad?" Isabel always dodged the subject. But the truth was a burden she carried alone, a secret she protected as if it were the most precious thing in the world. Because sometimes, protecting someone you love means bearing a burden alone that could destroy everything. And that night, when Lily looked at Alexander Sterling for the first time, something shifted in the air. Something neither of them was prepared to face. Chapter 3. The Impossible Resemblance. In the days that followed that dinner, Alexander couldn't get Lily out of his head. The image of the girl running toward him, arms open, that genuine smile, repeated in his mind like a looping film. For the first time in decades, the numbers on his computer screen made no sense. There was something bigger, more important. Sitting in his mansion office, Alexander held a photo he had discreetly taken that night. Lily stood next to Isabel, both looking uncomfortable under the curious stares of the guests. But what disturbed him was the impossible-to-ignore resemblance. The dimple on her cheek when she smiled, the shape of her eyes, the way she tilted her head when confused. Details he saw in the mirror every day. The desire to know the truth began to consume him in a way he had never experienced. He was terrified and fascinated by the possibility that Lily was his daughter. Across the city, in a small apartment that could fit entirely into the mansion's living room, Isabel also struggled with her conflicting desires. She always wanted Lily to have a present father, not for the money or status, but because every child deserved to know their roots. She remembered the night, 9 years ago, like it was yesterday. She was young, an intern at one of Alexander's corporate events. They talked for hours. There was a genuine connection. One thing led to another. When she discovered the pregnancy weeks later, Isabel tried to contact him, but he had vanished. She later learned that Alexander had blocked her number and ordered that she no longer be allowed in the building. What Isabel never knew was that all her attempts were intercepted by someone who had much to lose if the truth came out. And Lily, sweet Lily, she was the personification of a pure, innocent desire. When she saw Alexander that night, something inside her simply knew. It was an inexplicable connection, as if puzzle pieces were finally fitting together. And that's why she ran. Because for the first time in her life, the void she always carried seemed to have a name and a face. But what none of the three knew was that this shared desire for family, love, and truth was about to collide with forces that would do anything to prevent the truth from coming out. Interactive question. If you were Isabel, seeing Alexander's reaction, would you confess the truth immediately or wait until he made the first move, fearing his rejection? Comment your strategic choice. Chapter 4. The Wife's Ultimatum. Victoria Vance was not a woman to leave anything to chance. Seeing her husband distracted, mumbling the girl's name while sleeping, she knew she had to act fast. The threat was real, and if she didn't eliminate it, she would lose everything she had built. Victoria hired a private investigator. In less than 1 hour, a complete dossier on Isabel was on Victoria's dining table. Isabel Silva, 38, graduated from a state university. And the most important detail, 9 years ago, she had worked as a temporary intern at one of Alexander's corporate events. The same event where Victoria remembered her husband drinking heavily and disappearing for hours. The puzzle pieces clicked together disturbingly. "I need you to fire Isabel immediately." Victoria's first words cut through the air. "What are you talking about?" Alexander stopped in the middle of the room, confused. Victoria pushed the dossier toward him. "That woman worked at your company 9 years ago. That girl is 8 years old. Do you really think that's a coincidence?" Alexander felt his blood run cold. He tried to recall that night, but the images escaped like sand. "I don't remember her," he muttered, more to himself than to Victoria. "Of course you don't. You were drunk, vulnerable, and she took advantage of it. These women are all the same, Alexander. They see a rich man and do everything to secure their future. And now she's here, inside our house, planning the next step. She leaves, or I leave. Choose." The ultimatum echoed through the room like a gunshot. Alexander felt trapped. Part of him wanted to defend Isabel, wanted to uncover the truth. But the other, cowardly part that always chose the easier path, whispered that it was better to maintain the status quo. Meanwhile, Isabel felt the weight of the changing glances around her. The other staff, previously cordial, now whispered when she passed. The head housekeeper started reviewing her work with excessive rigor. Isabel knew Victoria was behind it, but she had a daughter to protect. She couldn't afford to lose the job, no matter how toxic the environment became. But the worst obstacle was internal. Every time Isabel looked in the mirror, she saw shame reflected back. Shame for having been so easily dismissed. The class difference was an impossible chasm to cross. She was the opportunistic housekeeper. The society had already judged. Lily also felt the weight. At school, other children started treating her differently after rumors spread. "Your mother is a gold digger," they said. "Your father doesn't want you." Isabel's savings were running out. She had 2 months of rent and food left. After that, she didn't even want to think. But what broke her most was Alexander's silence. He didn't call, didn't show up, gave no sign of life. His silence said everything she needed to know. He chose the convenient version of his wife over risking believing the housekeeper. Isabel looked at her reflection in the tiny bathroom mirror. She saw raw anger. Anger at being treated like trash. Anger that her daughter was being targeted. Anger at a man who didn't have the courage to seek the truth. And that's when she realized the letter wasn't enough. Alexander needed to see the truth in her eyes, not in written words he could ignore. Chapter 5. The public humiliation and the truth unsealed. Victoria chose the lunch hour on purpose. She knew the entire staff would be gathered for the meal. She knew the impact would be greater with an audience. And she knew, above all, that public humiliation was the most effective weapon to destroy someone. Victoria stood by the main table, her face a mask of calculated coldness. "I brought you all here because I believe in transparency. You all deserve to know what kind of person works alongside you." Her eyes fixed on Isabel. "She brings a child into my home. A child who, conveniently, is identical to my husband. A child who, even more conveniently, is the exact right age to have been conceived at a very specific time in his life." "Mrs. Vance, I can explain." Isabel's voice trembled. "And explain?" Victoria gave a bitter laugh. "Explain how you casually worked at my husband's company 9 years ago. Explain how you casually showed up here looking for a job 3 years ago. You planned all this. You infiltrated my house, gained my trust, waited for the perfect moment to show up with your little daughter, thinking you were going to get what? Alimony? A piece of the inheritance? Or maybe you wanted the full package, to marry a billionaire and never have to work again." The other maids began to look at Isabel with a mixture of judgment and contempt. The chef mumbled something about the quiet ones always being the worst. "I don't want anything from him," Isabel cried out, tears finally escaping. "I never asked for anything. I never—" "Of course you didn't," Victoria interrupted, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Because women like you are clever. You don't ask directly. You manipulate, seduce, set traps. You use children as bargaining chips. You destroy families." Isabel pushed herself up, her voice firmer. "I have more morality than you will ever have, because I don't need to humiliate other people to feel powerful." Victoria's face turned red with rage. Then, slowly, a cold smile formed on her lips. "Pack your things. You have 15 minutes to leave my property. If you take longer than that, I'll call security." Isabel turned to leave, each step an agony of humiliation. And that's when she saw it. Through the window that looked onto the side garden, a small figure in a blue dress, her face pressed against the glass, tears streaming down her cheeks. Lily. Her daughter had witnessed everything. Call to action. If you are feeling this pain with Isabel, like this video, and comment now. What is the deepest humiliation you've ever had to overcome? Chapter 6. The Unopened Letter. Alexander could not sleep. It was 3 a.m, and he was sitting in his office looking fixedly at the drawer where he knew the envelope was stored. The envelope Isabel had left. The letter he hadn't had the courage to open for days, terrified of what he would find inside. He finally pulled out the white envelope. His hands trembled. It's not just paper. It's truth. It's consequence. He broke the seal. The first thing that fell out was a photograph. Alexander picked it up and felt the air rush from his lungs. It was him, younger, smiling genuinely in a way he hadn't seen in years. And beside him, a woman in a blue dress, laughing, her eyes sparkling with happiness. Isabel. He remembered that dress now. The memories began to return in waves. The corporate event. The connection he hadn't felt in years. And then, nothing, a black hole in his memory. He continued reading the letter. Isabel's words were simple, direct, without self-pity. She told him about the pregnancy, about the desperate attempts to contact him. Screenshots of emails she had sent to his corporate address, all unanswered. Call logs to his number, dozens of them, all blocked. "I tried to tell you, Alexander," the letter said. "For weeks I tried, but it was as if you had disappeared. I thought you were deliberately ignoring me, that night meant nothing to you. I only found out years later that someone had intercepted all my attempts, someone who had a lot to lose if you knew the truth." A cold rage coursed through Alexander's veins. He never received those emails. He never knew about those calls. Someone had ensured he remained in the dark, and he had a strong suspicion. Who? Without thinking twice, Alexander called a private investigator. "I need you to investigate my wife. Everything. Emails, calls, financial movements from the last 10 years. I want to know every secret she's hiding." When the investigator's dossier finally arrived, Alexander locked himself in the office and began to read. And what he discovered chilled his blood. Victoria had not only known about Isabel, she had actively orchestrated keeping them apart. There were call records that Victoria had made to Isabel 9 years ago, threatening her. There were emails Victoria had deleted from Alexander's corporate account. There was even a record of a payment Victoria offered Isabel to disappear and never return. Isabel had refused the money. He needed confirmation. He called Dr. Mark Olson, his doctor friend, who was at that event 9 years ago. "Mark, do you remember that corporate event 9 years ago?" "Alexander, why are you asking about that now? Answer me. Do you remember me with someone that night?" "Isabel," Mark said immediately. "The intern. You spent the whole night talking. I even commented to you afterward that I had never seen you so alive, so genuine. You talked about her for weeks, Alexander. And then, suddenly, you stopped." "I didn't stop. I didn't even know she was trying to contact me." Mark sighed. "Victoria, she knew the whole time." Alexander hung up, his hands shaking with rage. At that moment, the office door opened. Victoria was back, tanned and relaxed from the spa, a smile on her face. "Darling, I'm home early. I missed you and—" She stopped at the look on his face. "You knew," he said, his voice dangerously calm. "You knew from the beginning." Chapter 7. The Confrontation and the Choice. Victoria closed the office door behind her, a cold, calculated expression replacing her smile. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. "Don't lie to me. Not now." Alexander slammed the dossier onto the table. "You intercepted all her attempts to contact me. You threatened a pregnant woman. You kept me away from my daughter for 8 years. I protected you," Victoria finally said, with genuine belief in her voice. "That woman was going to destroy everything we built. Our reputation, our business, our marriage. She was an opportunist taking advantage of your moment of weakness." "Moment of weakness," Alexander's voice rose. "Our marriage was already dead then. You chose to control, manipulate, destroy. She was an intern, Alexander. Did you really think that night meant anything to her? She saw an opportunity and grabbed it. She refused your money," Alexander shouted, pounding his hand on the table. "You offered her money to disappear, and she refused. If she was the opportunist, you say, she would have taken it and vanished. But she didn't. She only wanted me to know I had a daughter. A daughter you're not even sure is yours." Victoria's voice was losing strength. "I am sure. I looked into her eyes and I knew." Alexander ran a hand through his hair. Even if there was a shred of doubt, I deserved to know. Lily deserved the chance to meet me. What do you want from me, Alexander? An apology? Repentance? I did what I thought was necessary to protect our marriage. We don't have a marriage, Victoria. We have a facade, a performance. I want a divorce, Alexander said, and the words came out with surprising lightness. Keep the company. Keep the mansion. Keep everything. I don't care anymore. Because in those 15 seconds looking at Lily, I felt more than I have in all these years. He walked toward the door, but Victoria blocked his path. You'll lose everything. I'll destroy you financially. Then do it. Alexander grabbed his car keys. I'm not giving up my daughter. Not for money. Not for business. Not for anything. You think that woman will take you back? After you did nothing while I humiliated her? You are a coward, Alexander. You always have been. The words struck him because they were true. You're right. I was a coward. But that ends now. Alexander left the mansion without looking back. Chapter 8. The Waiting Game. Alexander drove to the neighborhood where Isabel lived. The contrast was brutal. He parked in front of the worn 3-story building. His hand trembled when he went to ring the doorbell for apartment 2, no answer. An elderly neighbor emerged. If you're looking for Isabel, she left early with the girl. I don't know when she'll be back. Alexander thanked her and decided to wait. He sat on the front steps, a completely out-of-place figure in his expensive suit. He waited for hours. When the sun began to set, he finally saw them. Isabel was walking down the street, Lily at her side, both carrying grocery bags from a cheap market. Lily saw him first. She stopped, tugging her mother's hand. Isabel looked up and froze. Isabel, His voice failed. How do you ask for forgiveness for 8 years? What do you want? Isabel asked, her voice sharp, protective. She pulled Lily closer to her. I read your letter. I found out the truth. About Victoria. About everything. Alexander took another step. And I came to ask for forgiveness. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't deserve it. But Lily deserves to know I didn't know. She deserves to know that if I had known, I would have been there from day one. Lily looked at her mother, eyes full of tears, silently begging for permission to believe. Lily, go upstairs, Isabel finally said, her voice firm but gentle. The girl reluctantly obeyed. When the door closed, Isabel turned to Alexander with all the accumulated rage of 8 years. You didn't know. Convenient, isn't it? Does you not knowing exempt you from any responsibility? No, Alexander said immediately. It doesn't. I should have looked for you after that night. I should have trusted what I felt, instead of letting Victoria erase everything. I was a coward, Isabel. But I won't be anymore. And what exactly do you want? To show up now, 8 years later, and play father? Do you have any idea what she went through? I had to lie, say you were far away, that you thought of her, when in reality you were living your perfect life without even knowing she existed. I want a DNA test, Alexander said, seeing Isabel's expression change to something between offense and incredulity. I believe you, but I need it. Not for me, for Lily. So that when Victoria and that whole hypocritical society try to question, I can show a paper that leaves no doubt, so that no one, ever again, can call you a liar or Lily a bastard. Isabel took a deep breath. And if it's positive, what happens then? Then I want to be her father, truly, not just with money or gifts, but present. To take her to school, help with homework, be there when she has nightmares, when she needs advice, when she just wants someone to listen. And if it's negative, then I would still want to be part of her life, Alexander said, because in those 15 seconds, when she called me daddy, I felt something I had never felt before, and I think that means something. Epilogue. The unbreakable bond. 3 days. That's how long the DNA lab took to process the test. Alexander and Isabel waited. He sent flowers, but Isabel sent them back with a note. We don't want your flowers. If you want to prove something, Show up. And he showed up. He was waiting at the school gate when Lily came out. She ran toward him but stopped a few feet away. "Are you going to stay?" she asked, her small voice breaking his heart. "I will," he promised, kneeling down. "This time, I'm going to stay." On the third day, Alexander brought the envelope to Isabel's apartment. Lily answered the door, still in her pajamas. "Is that the letter?" "It is." "Good," he confirmed. The three sat on the small, worn sofa. Alexander held the envelope, but his hands trembled. Isabel placed her hand over his, not in affection, but to stabilize. Together, they tore the seal. The paper inside was simple. At the bottom, a single bold line. Probability of paternity, 99.9%. The silence was absolute. Alexander read the line again. Then something inside him broke. He fell to his knees on the cramped floor, the paper still in his hands, and wept. "I am a father," he whispered between sobs. "I really am a father." Lily looked at her mother for permission. Isabel, tears streaming down her face, nodded. Lily slid off the sofa and, hesitant, approached Alexander. She touched his shoulder gently. "Daddy?" Her voice was so full of hope and fear. "Yes, my daughter, I'm your father." Lily didn't hesitate anymore. She threw herself into his arms. Alexander held her as if his life depended on it. "I'm so sorry I wasn't there, but I promise, I swear, I will never leave you again. Even when I'm annoying, especially when you're annoying." Alexander looked up at Isabel. "Thank you for raising her, for being strong when I was weak, for not giving up on her, even when it would have been easier." The story exploded. Victoria hired photographers to follow Alexander. "Billionaire Alexander Sterling discovers secret daughter with housekeeper," screamed the headlines. But something unexpected happened. The general public sided with Isabel, the single mother who raised her daughter alone. They questioned why the woman was always blamed. Victoria lost control of the narrative. Alexander, with Lily holding his hand, resigned as CEO of his company, selling his shares to free himself from his in-laws' control. He started a smaller firm focused on social impact. "Family comes first. Always," he stated publicly. He bought a modest, cozy home near Lily's school. He made breakfast, helped with homework, attended every school meeting. He was present. 1 year later, Alexander and Isabel married in an intimate ceremony in their garden. It happened because over those months, they rediscovered the connection they had on that night, built on honesty and mutual respect. Isabel went back to school and became a family lawyer, specializing in the rights of single mothers. Lily became a confident, articulate girl. The last scene of this transformation happened when Alexander was tucking Lily into bed. She looked up at him with those green eyes and asked, "Daddy, are you happy now?" Alexander looked around the simple room, thought about the fraction of the wealth he now had, and then looked at his daughter, at Isabel, who was watching from the doorway with a smile, and replied with total certainty, "I never knew what happiness really was until you called me Daddy." If this story of second chances and true fatherhood moved you, like and share this video. Comment now. What is the most important lesson you learned about true wealth from this story? Tuyet voi. Toi rutvui viban mun tiptok trinko Alexander, Isabel, va Lily. The Unbreakable Bond. The Sterling Legacy. Chapter 9. The Test of the New Foundation. 2 years had passed since Alexander Sterling stood on the steps of that worn apartment building and pledged to stay. The small, comfortable house in a middle-class Miami neighborhood was no longer a temporary shelter. It was a home built on laughter, learning, and the daily grind of a real family. Alexander's new venture, Conscience Properties, MOT Kung Ti But Dong San, Tup Trung Vo Nya O Zaka Phai Chung Va Ben Vung, was a modest success. Isabel was thriving in law school, and Lily, now 10, was a confident, articulate girl, excelling in school and leading a small, different families support group. One Friday evening, as Alexander was helping Lily with a science project, his phone vibrated with a private number. It was Mr. James Thorne, the CEO of the company Alexander had once founded. "Alexander, I need a word. It's urgent. It's about Victoria." Alexander stepped onto the porch. "What is it, James?" "Victoria has filed a restraining order against you. She's claiming emotional distress and corporate espionage. She alleges that you are using proprietary information from the old firm to undercut our projects through Conscience Properties." Alexander's jaw tightened. "That's absurd. My business model is public knowledge. It's based on ethical housing." "I know, but she's also doing something far worse. She's using her family's network to file a motion to reopen custody for Lily." Alexander froze. "Custody? She's not even her mother. What grounds does she have?" "She's claiming your current living situation is financially unstable and emotionally volatile due to the ongoing public scandal, and she's using her vast resources to argue that you and Isabel are unfit. She's requesting supervised visitation rights based on her previous relationship as your spouse, and an eventual transfer of guardianship to her sister, who is a wealthy social worker. It's a legal maneuver to bleed you dry and ruin your reputation globally. The past, in the form of Victoria Vance, wasn't just a ghost. It was a wrecking ball aimed at the foundation of their new life." Interactive question. If you were Alexander, would you fight this in court by revealing all of Victoria's past manipulations, the deleted emails, the threats, or settle privately to protect Lily from public exposure? Share your legal strategy. Chapter 10. The Lawyer and the CEO. Alexander immediately called Isabel, who was studying late at the community college library. She arrived home moments later, pale, but calm. "I need a lawyer, Isabel, the best." Isabel looked at him, then at the thick legal texts on the dining table. "You don't need a lawyer, Alexander. You need a truth architect. And I know the law better than anyone trying to use it against a mother who has suffered. I'll handle the paperwork. You handle the CEO." She worked all night, transforming their dining table into a war room, her focus absolute. Alexander knew he had to strike back where it hurt most: Victoria's credibility. The next morning, he walked into the towering offices of his old firm, not as a former CEO, but as a man with nothing left to lose. He confronted James, the current CEO, presenting overwhelming evidence of Victoria's historical deceit, including the intercepted communications and financial records of her previous threats to Isabel. "Victoria didn't just hurt me, James. She committed corporate fraud by using company resources to run a private investigation against an employee and interfere with her personal communications. If this goes to a public custody trial, everything she did, and everything you know, will be subpoenaed. It will sink the company's stock, and your reputation with it." James, terrified of a stock market scandal, agreed to take a stand against Victoria within the company. Meanwhile, Isabel and Lily, armed with legal documents and a camera, visited the house where Isabel was publicly humiliated 2 years ago. They recorded a calm, powerful video. Isabel spoke directly to the camera, explaining the truth without emotion, detailing Victoria's lies, and affirming the strength of her family. "My daughter is not a bargaining chip," she concluded, "and her father's love is not negotiable." The video, released to a few carefully chosen media outlets, went viral instantly. The public, who already loved Lily's story, rallied behind them. Chapter 11. The Courtroom of Conscience. The final court hearing was held quietly, shielded from the public eye by a judicious judge who understood the sensitivity of the case. Victoria's high-powered lawyers presented their case. Alexander's dramatic loss of wealth, his unconventional business, ethical housing, and Isabel's lack of a traditional career path. still in law school. When it was their turn, Isabel took center stage. She didn't use flowery language. She presented a clear, step-by-step case of Victoria's deliberate actions. The intercepted emails, the threats, and the ultimate act of public humiliation. She argued that Victoria's actions were driven by malice and a desire to control, not by concern for a child she had never shown affection for. Your Honor, Isabel concluded, her voice steady. This court is being used as a weapon of class warfare. Victoria Vance is not seeking guardianship. She is seeking revenge. The stability of a child is not measured by the size of her father's bank account, but by the integrity of her parents' character. My husband proved his integrity when he chose a life of truth over an empire of lies. My daughter's emotional stability is found in the certainty that her parents will never abandon her again. She then introduced Lily's final testimony, a simple drawing. It showed 3 stick figures holding hands in a small house with a big sun. At the bottom, Lily wrote, "Home is where Daddy makes pancakes, and Mommy reads her law books. I am safe here." The judge, clearly moved by Lily's drawing and Isabel's powerful defense, dismissed Victoria's motion with prejudice. Victoria was ordered to cease all legal action and public statements regarding Alexander and his family. The court was not fooled. Epilogue: The legacy of a good father. 1 year later, the Sterling Rodriguez family celebrated Lily's 11th birthday in the small garden of their home. Isabel graduated top of her class and opened a law practice focused on family and social justice, working closely with Alexander's Institute for Present Fatherhood. Alexander, now successful in his ethical business, was asked in an interview what he missed most about his life as a billionaire. "I miss nothing," he said, looking straight into the camera. "I used to measure my life by what I built for myself. Now, I measure it by what I build for her. My greatest fortune wasn't in real estate. It was in the chance to be a good father. That's the only legacy that truly matters." He smiled. "And I got to marry the woman who was too moral to take my money, but brave enough to teach me the real price of integrity." Lily ran up and hugged him. "I love you, Dad!" If Alexander's journey from a coward to a courageous father inspires you, like this video and share it. Comment below. What is the real difference between a cowardly choice and a courageous choice in the context of family? Alexander, Isabel, Lily, the unbreakable bond, legacy, and the final test. Chapter 12. The Architect of Integrity. 5 years melted away, marked by school events, family vacations to national parks, not private islands, and the steady, powerful rhythm of a family built on truth. Lily was now a confident 15-year-old, a brilliant high school student, and a passionate volunteer at the Institute for Present Fatherhood. She was her father's pride and her mother's legal aid. Isabel's law practice had become renowned in South Florida for representing single mothers and forgotten fathers, earning her the title, the Architect of Integrity in legal circles. Alexander's conscience properties had quietly grown into a multi-million-dollar force, proving that ethical housing was profitable. Their life was harmonious, but the world of the elite they had left behind was about to seek them out one last time. One morning, Alexander received an urgent call from Mr. Alan Foster, the former CEO who had once defended him at the gala. "Alexander, there's a massive problem at Vance Holdings." Alan's voice was strained. "Victoria's family, the Vances, mismanaged the company into the ground after I retired. It's teetering on bankruptcy. They are desperately selling off assets." "That's unfortunate, Alan, but I'm out of that game. They're selling off your old project, the Phoenix Tower in downtown Miami. The one you poured your heart into a decade ago. It's their last major asset. And who is the main bidder? A corporate conglomerate known for evicting low-income tenants and destroying historical landmarks for quick profit. The Phoenix Tower was a symbol of Alexander's past brilliance before he became distracted by his miserable marriage. It was the last link to his old self, now threatening to fall into unethical hands. If that company buys it, they'll turn the entire area into a slum for corporate greed, Alan pleaded. Alexander, your new company, Conscience Properties, is the only one with the moral reputation and the stable funding to submit a counterbid. You could save the project and prove your model works on a grand scale. Alexander hesitated. Re-entering the world of high-stakes corporate bidding meant risking the quiet peace he had built. It meant facing the Vances one last time. Interactive question. If you were Alexander, would you risk the family's peace and financial security by launching a counterbid to save a project that symbolizes your past? Or would you prioritize your present happiness with Isabel and Lily? Comment your decision. Chapter 13. The Daughter's Wisdom. Alexander brought the dilemma to the dinner table. Isabel listened intently, while Lily, the sharpest observer of them all, took notes on her tablet. "We have the money, Alexander," Isabel said, her hand resting on his. "And the ethical case. Your model for sustainable, mixed-income towers is exactly what Miami needs. This isn't just a building. It's a statement against the very greed that almost destroyed us." Lily spoke up, setting down her tablet. "Dad, remember what you taught me? You said you lost 8 years because you chose the easy path, choosing to stay quiet to keep the mansion. If you don't fight for the Phoenix now, you are choosing the easy path again." Her words hit him with the force of a thunderclap. Lily wasn't asking him to reclaim his lost fortune. She was asking him to live up to the man he had become. "The Vances are desperate," Isabel added. "They need a quick, quiet sale. If we can mobilize public opinion and prove that our ethical bid will bring more long-term value to the city than their corporate cash, we can win." Alexander made his decision. He would fight for the Phoenix Tower. Isabel immediately went into legal mode, preparing the intricate counterbid, while simultaneously filing an injunction to delay the sale, citing ethical concerns about the corporate bidder's history of environmental violations. Lily, utilizing her youth and the power of social media, launched a campaign titled "I'd Save the Phoenix." She rallied local community leaders, used footage of her father's successful affordable housing projects, and contrasted it with the corporate bidder's record of neglect. The campaign went viral in Miami, turning the corporate bid into a public relations nightmare. The final meeting was a tense showdown in the very boardroom where Alexander had once attended meetings with Victoria. Alexander faced his old enemies, the Vance family's remaining board members, now haggard and desperate. "We offer a fair price," Alexander stated, calm and resolute, "but with a commitment to maintaining the building's mixed-income housing units, its energy efficiency goals, and its public plaza. You get your money, the city keeps its conscience." The Vances, facing massive public backlash and a potential government inquiry spurred by Lily's campaign, had no choice. Alexander Sterling, the man they had scorned and attempted to bankrupt, bought back his own legacy with integrity. Chapter 14. The Final Legacy. The Phoenix Tower was successfully acquired by Conscience Properties. Alexander didn't just save the building, he implemented his vision, turning it into a benchmark for sustainable urban development and a symbol of integrity's triumph over greed. The Vances faded into obscurity, their names synonymous with old-world corruption. Victoria, alone in her empty mansions, tried one last desperate move, a tell-all book blaming Alexander and Isabel. The book was met with public indifference, seen not as a revelation, but as the final, pathetic plea of a woman who had lost everything by trying to control it all. The true final scene of Alexander's transformation came on Lily's high school graduation day. Lily stood at the podium as the valedictorian. Her speech wasn't about grades or colleges. It was about the journey of her family. "When I was 8, Lily began, her voice clear and strong, "I met my father, a billionaire who had lost his way. The world saw him as a hero for having money. My mother taught him he was a hero for giving up money, to choose the truth." She looked at her parents, sitting together in the front row, holding hands. "My mother is the bravest person I know. She could have chosen bitterness. She could have chosen revenge, but she chose love and dignity, and she taught my father that the true price of anything in life is your presence, your honesty, and your willingness to stay." She looked directly at her father. "Dad, you taught me that the biggest difference between a coward and a hero isn't what you own, but what you choose to protect." Alexander cried, openly and unashamedly, just as he had on the day he first read the DNA test results. He had gained back his legacy, not as an empire builder, but as a good father. The story of Alexander and Isabel, the billionaire and the former housekeeper, became the permanent foundation of their family. They proved that integrity is the only asset that truly appreciates over time. If Lily's wisdom inspires you, like this video and share it. Comment below. What is the greatest lesson a child has ever taught you about choosing the courageous path over the easy path?